In this week's show, we're going to talk about what puts the science in marketing science. That's the holy grail, right? As marketers and advertisers, we're always wishing that we had a concrete answer to, is our marketing reaching the right people at the right moment in an effective way? My name is Matt Bretz, and I'm an executive creative director and principal at Eisenberg. And at Eisenberg, we rely very heavily on marketing science. And one of the key aspects of marketing science is listening. We talk about listening and then creating and then sharing in a virtuous cycle. And marketing science is one of the key components to that listening moment, which is really at the essence of why we call the show Listen In. So I'd like to introduce our guests. Piotr Urbanski. Peter is the Associate Director of Marketing Science at A.network. So hi, Peter. Welcome.
Hi, Matt. It's great to be here.
What is the benefit of marketing science at its best? How would you offer that up to someone?
So I think in some ways, and this might kind of seem cynical, but it comes down to money. Marketing science will save you money and make you money. What we do is we try to tell you the highest probability of the best outcome, or the probability of the worst outcome, right? So we're helping you trying to come up with the best strategy that we would better our paychecks on. And we use the same approaches that someone might use that if they're going to try to, game the casino or game anything else, right? Anything with probability or statistics. We're just telling you your chances and which direction you should go and what best way to do it to maximize your chances.
I love it. So you're a card counter for marketing insiders.
Basically, yeah.
That's really cool. One of the things that I want to ask you right out of the gate is, how did you get into marketing science?
So it came in a very roundabout way. My background was in political science. I really wanted to get into politics, like be someone behind the scenes, helping politicians and sort of help the world out. Once I actually got to school and I started studying everything, I learned I was also really good at economics. And so I started taking statistics classes, econometrics, learning a lot of data science. And then eventually it was around the 2008 recession hit. I was, a year away from graduating, decided I was going to go to grad school. I would pretty much already had my heart set on going to grad school. I just didn't know what. Kind of got funneled into getting a PhD in political science, really loved studying human behavior. How do people sort of work together to collectively act towards getting some outcome? Was sort of my main sort of area of study.
So one thing I just learned is I should be calling you Dr. Piotr Urbanski, right?
Yeah.
That's really cool. I've been in advertising and marketing for a long time, and there's always been some degree of strategy involved, depending upon the agency that I was at. Sometimes it would be a really powerful strategy department. And I think, frankly, from my perspective as a creative, that feeling of the power of strategy often came from the wisdom and charisma of the strategist more than it came from what I would really call science, So it's really reassuring as we begin to delve into marketing science together to hear, I know it sounds a little silly, but that you're a doctor and that your background includes all kinds of other science.
So I really like the fact that in marketing science, it's so fairly fresh that I can have a significant impact on its development. And so since it's such a new field and I have such a broad expertise coming from all kinds of different, social sciences and some physical sciences, I can bring in a diverse set of approaches to help move it from, more qualitative to quantitative to actually, and what we'd call in the Kuhnian sense, Thomas Kuhn was a philosopher of science. His idea was that science eventually becomes what is the normal science. Like there's a normal process. Everyone sort of agrees on that's how we do things. This is how we measure things. And we'll just build around, our core knowledge and continue building off of it. And so that's where we kind of are in the early stages of marketing science, right? We're still figuring out what it means to be as a science.
Let me ask you this as a kind of a sidestep. What do you literally do all day, every day as a marketing scientist? Like, are you a software engineer? Are you a mathematician? Like, When you go into the office each day, or now when you work from your home office, what are you up to?
So the day to day is a combination of, doing the traditional sort of reporting asks, but also for us being sort of the guiding sort of factor or guiding personality, guiding force that's going to sort of push through the insights that we found. And the difference between what we do and what, other analytics teams or insights teams might do is, they'll sort of at a very surface level report to you how well, your campaigns are doing, maybe give you some loose level insights, but we actually try to ground everything we can in behind the scenes from a scientific approach. By that, I mean, either we'll do the research going into, scientific fields like psychology, academic advertising, or whatever it is, find theories that have been, very well vetted, very well known, and sort of try to make sure that our guidance fits into that. And it's the same way that maybe someone who's working in the health, sort of public health, might take the sort of studies from doctors and sort of epidemiologists and apply it, though, to public policy or hospital guidelines, right? Like you're taking the academic and then there's processes, but also taking them and applying them in the real world.
How would you define earned media value?
I guess there's probably two primary sort of definitions of earned media value. The first is sort of you do something as an advertisement or spur other people to sort of create media for you. So this is like user-generated content, people retweeting you, creating, just mentioning you to their friends, right? So you earned that through something that you did. Then there's also sort of earned media value that you can sort of think of it as you do something and organically people engage with you. It's a value that you get because it's an offset of money you would have had to spend otherwise. Technically, from both lenses, it's the same thing, right? You're offsetting money that you would have had to spend otherwise. That's the earned part.
One of the unique and powerful things about working at the A.network as a marketing scientist is that we really are endeavoring to deliver marketing that runs the whole spectrum of the front line, from big, paid, above the line awareness plays, all the way down to intimate one-to-one conversion moments between influencers and consumers. I think one of the reasons that having marketing science in conjunction with work in the influencer space could be so attractive is that the influencer space itself is a little bit of a soft space where it's still its nature, purpose, impact is always evolving and changing. And so how can marketing science help us to understand more concretely things like the earned media value of an influencer program, so that a marketer and a marketing insider can determine, here's what I'm really getting in earned media value from my work with this influencer as compared to the paid media spend that I might otherwise have made in a traditional advertising effort?
So one of the approaches that we do is we try to look outside of our data set. So, and by that, what I mean is we have all our influencer data. This will be their social posts and the performance of those social posts, whether they're on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat. And then we'll try to correlate that the best we can, and I can get into more detail of this, but to something outside of that data set. So maybe into social listening, right? Do influencers drive conversation? So the traditional approach to that has been in sort of ad tech or the Googles and Facebooks, that approach to data science has been to try to track people one-to-one through the consumer journey. Tracking someone can be very difficult, right? And it's not the approach that the social sciences do, right? When we're trying to figure out people's preferences for one policy or another. Yes, it's a survey, and we know who the individual might be, but there's like a broader tracking of all kinds of different data. So what we've been doing is we've been tracking our influencer performance, and instead of necessarily only cookie tracking them, like pixel tracking, like tracking through like technology, we look at the KPI performance and its correlation to other KPIs. Yes, correlation is not causation, right? But we take it a step further, and when we can, yes, we'll do the gold standard of doing some sort of experiment or field experiment. But in between those, you have something a little bit better than correlation. It's sort of correlation through time, right? Because there are different barriers to causality, of like sort of hurdles that you have to try to get to showing cause and effect. So we're measuring lift above baseline that can't be explained by anything except influencers' activity. So like, it's a very convoluted way of saying like we're trying to get at the cause and effect. And that's again where the science is important, is because if you're trying to think causally or for causal inference, you can get these deeper insights and frankly easier insights, I think, right? Everyone always struggles coming up with actionable insights, but if you know what causes what, you can control the cause. Very easy, actionable insight.
Yeah, that's a great overview. And you're being asked to provide science, I presume, that supports the approach to every single stage along the line. Can you tell me a little bit about how you do that for some of the larger campaigns that you've been involved with?
Yeah, so it can get pretty complicated, especially for like a big campaign where you have everything running. But those actually are the easier ones to study, right? When we have a campaign and we're managing a lot of the effort, we have visibility into a lot of the effort, and we have the data, we have the tracking. Very complicated. And at the end of the day, we'll tell the client, hey, it's 5% better, right? So sometimes you can't escape that, right? But you still want to do that 5% better in a way that you show your homework, right? You showed your due diligence. You showed that the client can trust you because you're completely transparent with everything. And there's a lot of ways to do that, is to build trust. Transparency builds trust.
And 5% at scale can be a very big difference. So, I've been interested in this thing that you kind of highlighted for me, which is this tension between the thinking of, say, Malcolm Gladwell in Blink about the power of the thin slice and how it points towards human intuition, versus Daniel Kahneman in Thinking Fast and Slow, how he may ultimately come down on the side of the healthy second guessing of whether human judgment is always correct. And I wonder where you land in that kind of wrestling match between those two notions. Are we more invested in the success of data, or are we more invested in the success of the gut instinct?
That field is super awesome. It's actually one of my favorite things actually to study, is how amazing our brains are at like heuristically doing shortcut math and being right? Think about how a football quarterback can throw a football, calculate the trajectories in their head through feeling alone, right? Like they're not doing the math in there, right? They know after practicing it so many times, the weight of the football, the slickness of my hand and glove, the direction and the wind, right? I need to throw it in this exact angle to get it like right to the right person that I want to get it to at like, the speed and depth and all that stuff. So when it comes to marketing science, it's actually the same thing, right? The practice is important. And that's where Kahneman and Tversky's book is important, is because they have a type 1 and a type 2 brain. There's like the lizard brain, right? The early evolved portion of our brain that is very fast, right? This is our instinct. This is our gut reaction to things. And then there's our type 2 brain. This is our logic, reasoning, higher order function brain. This is where we're thinking day to day. But you can transition learnings from one to the other. Reduce this, right? You're becoming an expert. You're learning all these different things, and it's becoming second nature. It's in your lizard brain. You now intuitively are going to be much better at predicting things than you would have been before. So yes, humans innately are very bad at type 2 thinking, but you can get your type 2 thinking to be correct by becoming such an expert at it that it becomes ingrained nature within your type 1 lizard brain. So I think it's not that people are bad at more critical thinking. It's just that they need more practice.
Do you want to talk to me a little bit about how important knowing where the data is from is?
Yeah. So one of the things in academia that we have like drilled into our heads is data generating process. Know where your data comes from. And this actually is really important because, especially in digital marketing, it moves so fast. It's like a moving target. Like day to day, we don't know how our platforms are measuring things. So we have to keep track of it, right? An impression today might not be an impression tomorrow. Then you get into the technical things as well. Did they actually look at it? How long did they look at it? How much was maybe obscured? Did they have an ad blocker? How is your platform measuring an impression? Are they duplicating? Are they removing fraudulent impressions? So now you're trying to compare. Suddenly, you might end up comparing, apples to oranges, and you didn't even realize because, two people are telling you this is an impression, this is an impression, but once you like sort of look where it came from, completely different things. It's really important, really, to know the data generating process, right, from start to finish. Right. So an impression is generated when someone sees an ad on a website, or maybe a Facebook, right? So that's already a distinguishing factor. It's not traditional website or traditional ad. It's a social media ad.
Let's say I'm a marketing insider that watches this show, and I'm, legitimately trying to decide whether to allocate some of my budget this year to marketing science as opposed to paid media spend or robust creative exploration. Just take for granted that I have to make a choice. What is the argument for utilizing marketing science as part of your effort to do great marketing and advertising?
You have to think a bit more long term. In the short term, though, you will get the added benefits of greater efficiencies, more learnings, greater transparency into your campaigns and data, and making sure you're spending money in the right way so that you're keeping yourself accountable. Longer term, those efficiencies are going to definitely multiply because you're going to have knowledge retention. Having someone with a strong marketing science, specifically science background, they're going to be inclined towards retaining that knowledge, storing it, teaching others, so that all the money you've spent in learning something that learning isn't forgotten, and then you have to spend that money again. So there's a lot of different efficiencies between the short and long term for having essentially a measurement team, a science team, data science team, marketing science, whatever you want to call it. Having a team like that is very integral towards any company. The bigger your company, the more likely you need this. The smaller companies can probably rely on pooling their resources and hiring, an agency or consulting company to do it for them. But definitely, if you're a very big company, like you probably have a lot of knowledge retention issues, and you're just spending the same money over and over again to learn the same thing over and over again.
Piotr Urbanski, brilliant. Thank you so much for doing this show. My brain is aching with all of the information that you provided.
Well, I hope it was exciting.
It was very exciting, and I hope we'll have you back in the future. If you liked what you heard on this episode of Listen In, please drop us a note at listenin@eisenberg.com. Share your insights and let us know if you'd like to be a guest on the show. You'll always find the full version of each episode of Listen In here on AList. And please always think who you know that might benefit by these insights and share this episode with them. And don't forget, please like us before you go. Till next week on Listen In, keep your ears on.